Hey guys, Potates here. This video is focusing on a particular way you can build your character in Middle-earth Shadow of War. That build is the Shelob build, formerly the Witch King build. This build focuses on spreading both fear and poison. So if you haven't seen my video on the full skill tree, check that out first before watching this, the link is in the description. To fit more closely with the theme, I've updated the Witch King build to be the Shelob build, and we'll be bringing out the updated Witch King build later. The Shelob build now uses 4 set items from the Dark Tribe and 2 from the Terror. The Shelob build is a highly mobile, mixed build that focuses on poisoning your enemies and turning them into walking bombs ready to explode and spread the toxin. Your presence inspires fear, so those walking bombs now start running, spreading the chaos further. This build likes to do ridiculous damage over time, but isn't above being sneaky or using ranged attacks. If you would lead Mordor's armies into your sticky web of chaos, the Shelob build is for you. So let's get started on the pros and cons of this build, then talk about the items you'll need, and finally talk about the skill list. The first pro is the build is very fun. Not quite the same levels of chaos as the Golem build, but it's definitely more explosive. The build has extremely good crowd control, having many ways to fear targets and a lot of area of effect damage skills. You'll also be using stealth, range and melee, so this build is quite adaptable to the situation at hand. Not to the same levels as the Gandalf build, but still quite good. The build also has high mobility with Elven Agility and Shadow Strike, meaning you can weave in and out of combat and position yourself to have the biggest advantage. Finally, the build has extremely high damage over time output. Spreading poison doesn't just look pretty, it does a lot of damage, and taking a fortress will be a breeze. Firstly, this build has all its eggs in the poison basket. You can find yourself struggling with poison immunities, especially if you're facing an overlord. An overlord with resistances to combat, range and poison will be extremely difficult for you to handle. Also, fear effects from Brutalize, Shattering Blow, Brutal Cold and Brutal Executions don't work on most captains. You'll need to see what they are fearful of to terrify them. Thankfully, this build has strong AoE and damage over time, so poison them and regroup with your high mobility. Speaking of strong AoE, this build is not the best duelist. Your individual damage output would not be as high as some of the other builds like the Aragon or Boromir build, so if facing a particularly strong enemy you will need to poison them and play the War of Attrition. Notably, this build has a lot of friendly fire, and you may kill allies accidentally. Fortress defenses will be hard as your valuable troops will probably catch the effect and defending will become much harder. Finally, every orc in Mordor will say, "Let him go, you filth. Let him go!" When it comes to items, this build has one major objective: poisoning enemies and spreading that poison. The Dark Tribe items give bonuses to poison and make the poison explosive. The Terror set spreads fear, which causes enemies to run, spreading the poison. So for this build, you'll need exactly 2 items from the Terror Tribe and 4 from the Dark. For those who don't know, Legendary Uruk of a tribe will drop a set item based around that tribe. Which pieces you get don't matter as long as you have 6 item slots filled with 4 Dark and 2 Terror. Some pieces of the set will give better bonuses, but you can only be choosy when you have enough pieces as you can't control what drops. Look out for pieces that increase poison damage and pieces that cause enemies to flee, seen here. The Dark set focuses around doing poison damage with each piece. The one here has Cursed on Quick Throw, but it can roll Poison on Quick Throw if you're lucky. With 2 pieces of the Dark set equipped, you'll be gaining a lot more might passively for just having enemies poisoned. This is huge as your might spending moves will propagate poison and then the poison will give you might, repeating the cycle and ensuring enemies are always poisoned. With 4 set pieces of the Dark Tribe, all your attacks will now have a 1 in 5 chance of inflicting an explosive poison on grunts. This includes normal sword swings and bow attacks. When grunts explode, they do damage in a large area and spread the effect. The Terror set focuses around making enemies flee from you. With 2 pieces of the set, those fleeing Uruk can now be instantly killed with Quick Throw. A good combo is to use Ice Storm on an enemy. Those hits will have a chance of putting an explosive poison on the Uruk, then once the flurry ends, the target will explode, spreading the poison and also causing grunts in the area to flee because of the Shattering Blow upgrade. You can then instantly kill the grunts with Quick Throw and cause them to explode, spreading the effect further. This causes absolute chaos. So next, let's talk about skills and the order in which you should get them. Just to reiterate, these videos are about the order in which you get your skills and which upgrades to get to maximize usefulness at all stages of the game. Like a lot of builds, pick up Execution first, as it gives you a means to defeat key targets early on. Execution instantly kills grunts and does heavy damage to captains, so unleash it often. Well, until you get other might spending skills anyway. You will also need to pick up Secret Might, because this build will utilize Brutalize quite a lot, as well as other stealth abilities, as well as in fact setting off poisonous explosions while undetected, so building extra might for doing so lets you get off those juicy might spending moves like Venom. Next, you pick up Elven Agility, all around a good skill, letting you get in or out of trouble fast and letting you traverse the world easily. The bonus is that it leads into the next skill, Brutalize, which lets you start combat in the best way possible, with a load of might, a higher hit streak, and some fleeing grunts. Immediately upgrade this to Reckless Hate. You'll be getting in there, fearing everyone around you, and almost immediately setting off powerful might-based attacks. There are items that work with fear, so Brutalize and skills like it will greatly benefit from those fleeing enemies. The next skill, Poison Tendril, is a fantastic ability, letting you add poison damage to Grog Barrel explosions, which sets off a powerful Balefire effect, which is a mix of poison and fire, getting the effects of both. Pick up Bursting Toxin next. What's better than poison grunts that can explode? Poison grunts that will explode. Most effects that come from Talion when you have the full dark set bonus have a chance to cause enemies to explode already, but why not invest in a way to cause more? Remember, exploding orcs spread the poison, which gains the effects from your items and grants you increased might as they take damage. The added benefit is this build uses fear, so poisoned and fleeing enemies spread the poison around, causing absolute chaos. If you find an orc that increases his allies' poison damage with the Poison Master epic trait, consider making him your bodyguard. Since we got the skill we were here for, let's jump over to the Wraith tree now and pick up Brace of Daggers. With the Terror 2-set bonus, you'll be instantly killing fleeing grunts with your daggers, and if they have the explosive poison effect from poison tendrils or your items, they will explode, spreading the effect. If you find the Dark Tribe set dagger and it has rolled Quick Throw applies poison every so often, this skill will be even more useful. Consider upgrading this to Rain of Blades once you do, but for now, leave it be. Elven Light is up next, and with its upgrade, Poison Blast, which you get immediately, it will be your main melee might spender. It sends out an area of effect blast, poisoning all around you. Once again, poisoning and fearing your enemies is the main objective of this build. Keep in mind that poisoning more enemies means more ticks of might from your 2 Dark Set Tribe items, which means even more Elven Lights and other might spending moves, snowballing the effect. Poison balling, whatever. So, you start by assessing the situation in stealth, poisoning grog barrels and spreading the plague. Maneuver around and stealth kill your enemies or pick them off at range. Before you are seen, pick your moment and open with a powerful upgraded Brutalize. Your might will be at full at this point, so unleash a powerful poison blast, causing enemies that survive to be running bombs, spreading the poison even further. You then focus on your key target, whittling them down with executions and poison blasts, or retreating with Elven Agility to regroup and start again. The next skill you should pick up is Ice Storm. It's a great ability to build your might as well as get through those pesky savages. Immediately upgrade this to Shattering Blow. Ice Storm is another means to send your enemies running in fear. Brutalize is a stealth fear option, and Ice Storm will be your melee combat fear option. During combat, you want to use this as much as you can to build your might and unleash your might spending moves. To end the Wraith tree, pick up Consume. This is the tech choice, helping you get back precious health if you're in trouble, or rapidly dominating a captain if you have the upgrade. Let's step over to the range tree now and pick up Detonate. On its own, it gives you a tool to propagate fire when around the fire pit, so if you desperately need the damage type, lead a key target to the pit and unleash it. We'll come back here later to upgrade it, however. For now, get the skill Freezing Pin, then immediately upgrade it to Brutal Cold. On its own, Freezing Pin lets you isolate key targets from a fight, all those who are fleeing away from you, and lets you fear captains scared of pinning. With Brutal Cold, however, this is another tool to scare off groups of enemies. Like mentioned before, Brutalize is the stealth fear option, Ice Storm will be your melee fear option, and now Freezing Pin will be your ranged fear option. Bird of Prey is up next and is fun to use, especially when you have full focus and might, as you can unleash a volley of arrows, a Freezing Pin, and then follow up with a Mighty Shot, which is upgraded with Venom. Venom is your ranged poison spreading option. If you have enough might in stealth, launching off a Venom to a group can really cause some chaos. Open up with a Mighty Shot, then follow up with a Freeze Pin. This will send the poison orcs scattering like rats, exploding and spreading the effect. Very satisfying. If you find an orc immune to combat finishes, you can use your poison-based attacks. If immune to range, you can use your melees. So, next upgrade to Shadow Strike. Any build that gets this far down the range tree should pick up this skill, as it completely changes the way you can play. It lets you instantly start fights or get away from them. It lets you fast travel around or port to regroup and get health back. This skill is amazing, so immediately upgrade it to Shadow Strike Pull. This gives you a tool to isolate key targets firstly, but more interestingly is pulling a poisoned orc to you, finishing them off and letting the explosion hit everything around you for extra damage and spreading the poison effect. Who cares about your own health anyway? I can't stress how useful isolating key targets is. By the time anyone realizes their captain's been snatched away to high ground, it'll be too late and you would have killed him. Especially useful in Overlord fights. Let's now pop back to Detonate and upgrade it to Spider Song. This summons in a group of spiders that kill your target not killed by the fiery explosion. Better yet, these spiders poison, which is great if you have gear that takes advantage of this.
Be the true Spider Queen, the hot, fiery Spider Queen.
So now we've reached a crossroads. Do you finish off the Predator or the combat tree first? For this build though, you'll start by finishing off the combat tree, but come back to this point if you've decided Predator should be first. So pick up Perfect Counter, which gives you some breathing room in large fights if you learn how to counter when the prompt flashes blue, so get good at the timing. However, your main source of crowd control should be your fears, so if you find yourself overwhelmed, Shadow Strike or Elven Agility a way to regroup. Next up is Critical Strike. This will increase your DPS of melee combat for you, and if you have any items that spread poison on crit, this will be a core skill. If so, consider upgrading this to Elven Precision now. If crits aren't part of your gear, then leave this unupgraded. Ground Finisher is up next, and if you use Ground Finishers often, this will definitely help. If not, it's a means to get to the next skill. The next skill being Brutal Aggression, yet another way to instill fear in your enemies. If you have 2 fully charged might bars going into combat, opening with a Brutalize and then a Brutal Execution can almost ensure your target will be alone. Since you have Ice Storm upgraded to Shattering Blow, it won't be as useful as it could be. However, Brutal Aggression's upgrade, Ceaseless Might, is what we want. It lets you get off Venoms, Poison Blasts and Executions consecutively, as now those attacks won't fully spend your might. The more poison and fear you can spread, the better. Now we go back to the Predator tree and pick up Wraith Chain. This will be your main focus spending move along with the bow and use of Bird of Prey. Use Wraith Chain to clear out large groups of enemies in stealth before opening the fight. Deadly Spectre is up next. This skill lets you set up a deadly trap for your enemies. In stealth, you'll be using the attract skill a lot, so being able to move on before they get to you and stealth killing them is valuable. With the upgrade, Terrifying Presence, this will now brutalize as well, sending enemies running for the hills. The good thing is, The enemies that remain still won't detect you, even when their friend screams in pain while Celebrimbor brutally kills them. So take that might and launch off a deadly venom, or use the chaos to brutalize and poison blast combo a key target. With this build you have tons of options to start fights and end them. Make sure you assess the situation first, much like the Golem build. Unlike the Golem build though, you will eventually want to get in the mix of a fight. So while assessing, stealth kill who you can with many options and start causing chaos by utilizing the environment. When you have enough might, you can start launching off venoms and freezing pins and then retreat to watch the chaos. When you need to start a fight, you can open with either brutalizing, shadow striking, or shadow strike pulling. You should be able to immediately poison blast and then start weaving daggers and ice storms into combat and the occasional consume if you need to get back health. The build is very fun. If you've skipped the combat tree to get Predator first, please go back to the point I mentioned in the crossroads, else continue on. As you know, story skills unlock at different stages of the game, so pick these up as soon as they are available. Once you have Drain, pick up one of its upgrades. Get Quiver of Souls if you like weaving range combat in a bit more and find yourself running out of arrows often. Get Bright Lord's Wrath if you find yourself loving the use of Elven Rage. If you get this, consider upgrading Consume to Chain of Souls to really pump up the Wrath gain. Else, get Dominate, which turns Consume into a quick way to turn your enemies to your side, which is better in most cases actually. When Elven Rage unlocks, immediately upgrade it to Poisonous Wrath. This poisons any survivors of the Elven Rage and gains the effects of poison related gear. As soon as Call Followers is available, upgrade it to Bodyguard if you found an orc that gives bonuses to poison damage and stick with it. Otherwise, wait until you unlock Cluster of Spiders by finding all the Shelob memories and upgrade it as soon as it's available. Spiders propagate poison and can be commanded to attack orcs in stealth, killing grunts outright. So now we reach the end of the build. The next skills you get are personal choice. However, I recommend grabbing the remaining skills and upgrading the ones you use the most. Usually I'll tell you my recommendations, but in this case, it's definitely better to upgrade the ones that you use the most. Thanks for watching guys, I have a ton more Shadow of War content coming very soon, so be sure to subscribe. Leave a comment below on the build you're going to run in Shadow of War as well, I'd love to see it. I'm Potates, and see you soon.